my name is Bethany Wight. I'm a research biologist, with the wildlife program here. And I work with, Dr. Hans Ellington. And today we're going to talk about drones in science and other applications and how we use them. We'll do some demonstration flights. So a little bit of history. Everyone knows what a Tesla is nowadays, right? Well, Nikola Tesla was really the father of unmanned vehicle technology when he created a radio-controlled boat. And then from the 1800s to present day, it's been mostly in military applications, which I'm sure we've seen, like military drones, etc. About 2013, drone technology really started to advance, and I'd say 2016 is really when it just took off with smart drones and being affordable. There are two different types of general platforms or types of drones. The first one is a fixed wing, so just think of like a regular airplane. They cover really large areas fast, and they have really long flight times, so almost 45 minutes, which is pretty long for one battery. There can be some issues with image blur from the speed, and they only look down, and we call that NIDAR. You can't adjust it like a gimbal, which I'll talk about in a second. The other thing is you hand launch these, and I guess you hand land them. I'm not sure how exactly that works, but I'm gonna have to Google it now. And then we have our quadcopters, we call them. So we've got 4 engines here, right? Those are more popular now, and they even have huge ones. Anyway, these quadcopters, very common. They're really good for accuracy and resolution. Shorter flight times, but really good these days, like 15 to 17 minutes. And they have a gimbal. So gimbal, this is the camera, it's on a gimbal. So if you set the angle of this camera, if the drone moves, that angle is going to stay the same because it's on a gimbal. So it keeps it really smooth and a good clear image. So we started way over here with what I call the Beast. This is an X8 made by 3DR company, and I got handed this drone in 2014. I had no idea what to do with it. I had to learn how to solder connections, what an ESC was, replaced multiple engines, just a really steep learning curve. I've had plenty of crashes. I put a hole in Dr. Seller's lab over here once in the roof, but he forgave me. Anyway, a huge learning curve, and also this camera that didn't come with the camera. This is just a regular like Canon Pro Shot or Sure Shot, whatever they call them. I basically had to hack it. I put like a script on it that then communicates to the drone. It says take a picture when it's supposed to take a picture. I don't know if I ever really got that to work perfectly, but anyway, so a really steep learning curve. And then this gimbal I had to get replaced and pretty much build on my own, so I definitely learned a little bit about engineering. And this is the remote control, which is pretty much in Chinese. I figured out how to go up, down, and left and right and land, kind of, but I don't think I ever figured out what half of these work, and the manual was so big learning curve. Super short flight times, 4 minutes, so like there's really no time to get much done, right? And the batteries, what I call very sketchy. They're called lipos, and they're like these bricks, but if they get swollen and punctured, they're gonna blow up like a little bomb. If you crash really hard, it's probably gonna blow up the whole drone. So they're just really sketchy and expensive. So when we got this, it was about $1,800 in 2014. So then we went up to a DJI, which is one of the biggest brands. It's called a Phantom 4 quadcopter. It's what they call a smart drone, so it can hover smart. So if I launch it and take my hands off the controllers, it's just going to stay where it is. It can do about 15 to 17 minutes. The batteries are way more stable and friendly. And you can do different kinds of flight modes. There's follow me, or we'll follow you if you're on like a ATV or something and you have the remote control with you, I think. I've never tried that one. They have point of interest. And then the biggest one that we use is autonomous mapping. So basically, I draw a polygon around a pasture, let's say. I'll set the altitude, the accuracy, the overlap of images, and then it's going to basically create this flight plan, and the drone's going to launch and fly itself and take a picture when it needs to. The other cool thing is if you do like a 40-acre pasture with this drone, usually I have 2 to 3 batteries needed. So it'll launch, record its home point where it launched, fly until it gets to a certain low battery percentage rate, then it'll return home, land, I turn it off, swap the batteries, then it's going to launch again and go to where it left off and continue its flight. So pretty smart. And this is definitely my favorite drone. It was about $1,600 when we got it in 2016 or 17. Unfortunately, DJI, the company, is on the federal ban list because it's made in China now. Well, it's always been made in China, but anyway. So I'm not allowed to get it fixed. We're hoping they resolve that soon because this is probably the most used drone for basic research out there. So because of that, I had to move on to this new drone, which is called the Parrot, Anifa quadcopter. It's tiny, folds up. When I first got it, I wasn't so sure because it's so small, but it's actually pretty stable in the air. Still smart, not a lot of training required. About 15-minute flight time, and again, it's got those flight modes, follow me, point of interest, and then also that autonomous mapping. And I think when we got this one, it was about $1,500, but we got like a package with extra batteries. This drone you could probably get right now for like $1,000, if not cheaper, if it was used. So multiple sensors out there for tons of different applications. Just your typical camera for mapping. I've done some plant surveying for like smut grass out here. Thermal, so you can look at the surface temperature of objects. Multispectral, you can look at plant health and nutrients, plant productivity. LiDAR is huge. It's used for most of the maps that we use on our phones, etc. So it measures distance and elevation, so you get that kind of topography. And then hyperspectral is more detailed into like plant nutrient and chemical composition on the surface. And when we say sensors, it's basically a camera, a type of camera. Oh, she's getting hot. Me too. So this is a good image diagram of an autonomous flight. So essentially your drone's flying, taking pictures, picture. And each of these pictures is going to have what we call an EXIF tag. So it records the date, the time, and the biggest thing is it records your location. So it's saying this picture belongs right here. So then we can use just an online software or software you purchased to basically upload your pictures, and it's going to stitch them all together based on that EXIF tag of where each picture is located. So this one goes here, oh, this one goes here, etc. to create the final mosaic. So applications, again, two-dimensional and three-dimensional mapping. Three-dimensional mapping is super cool. I've seen videos where they fly around an entire skyscraper and record it, and then we just create this awesome three-dimensional visual map, I guess, of the skyscraper. It's used a lot in construction. Vegetation, habitat monitoring, plant productivity. And now they're getting so good they can look at minerals, your seeding rate, the organic matter, nitrification zones, tons of applications for agriculture. And also for wildlife tracking and monitoring. They're actually starting to use them on to track an animal that has like a VHF tag on it, which is interesting. I think you'd be a little limited on flight time, but people are starting to do it. Thermal imagery is really cool. Often they do it at night, so you can see actually animals and identify abundance. I just saw a really cool video from DJI out of Switzerland, where the farmer's goes out to plow with, I don't know what you call it, a combine? Whatever, the big giant mower, right? And they often have problems with fawns sleeping out in the vegetation. They can't see them. And so now they have a guy that comes out before the farmer's planning to mow, and he flies usually at night or really early in the morning when it's dark, and he identifies all these fawns, and I think they either flag them or remove them, and they've saved like over 2,500 fawns in the last couple of years.
Wow.
So it gives the farmer peace of mind too, and helps the wildlife, so pretty cool. And then there's also just basic 2D mapping site to identify abundance or counts of animals. So I think about a bunch of white birds on the ground. A lot easier and more accurate to do it with a drone and count them. So great egrets or wood storks here. And there are registration requirements. Who knows what the FAA is? Federal something. Aviation Administration, so basically rule the skies for everything. Excuse me. So for a recreational flyer, even if you're just flying for fun, you do have to follow FAA rules. I'm not going to go over all of them. They have a really good website. Big ones are like you can't fly at night, not over people. Maximum height period is 400 feet for any drone, except for military. You do have to register your drone, even if you're flying for fun. Takes 5 minutes. I think it's about $5, and they'll send you a registration number sticker that you're supposed to put on your drone. And now they have this new safety test that they want you to take too, that just came out. If you fly for money or work, you have to fly under what they call Part 107. So you still have to follow the rules, you have to register your drone, and you have to become an FAA certified pilot by taking a test. This is my fancy little pilot, even though it's just remote pilot license. The test is actually pretty hard. Reading aeronautic charts and maps is way more difficult than you think. Identifying the aircraft space you're in, and like there's questions about like how to land on a runway, which I'm pretty sure I'm never going to do with my drone, but I had to know how to do it. So I have to take that test every 2 years to keep my pilot's license. Also, UF requires permits now, so today I had to put in for a permit, just describe where I am, what I'm doing, a couple more details, and they have to actually approve it. It gets to be a little more difficult if you're in a city or near campus. But out here, I usually don't have any issues.
So that says for each flight. So every time you take
fly?
up, you have to apply for a permit.
On UF's website, yeah. Yeah, which is annoying, yes. And it's hard, they kind of work with me now because like sometimes I'll be flying for a week. So, you know, it's all weather dependent too. They often let me put a note in now, like from this day to this day I'll be flying. But then I have to turn in flight logs too. Previous research, we did a feral pig, wild hogs rooting damage. So most people know pigs root, right, cause tons of damage. We looked at rooting damage over time and seasons across for 3 years, and we had 36 wetlands and 48 acre pastures that we flew 4 times a year. It was quite an effort, a lot of work, and flying a drone over 40 acres is definitely not as fun as it sounds. Basically watching it for 2 hours, changing batteries, but still very cool data. Then we use ArcGIS mapping software. So this is a really common, fancy software that does all kinds of mapping. So this is a wetland we flew, one of our pastures. It's a former PhD student, Wes Anderson, putting a GCP, or ground control point, in. So when you stitch all these images together, it's pretty good at putting the image where it should be, but it might be off just a little bit. So if you use these GCPs, ground control points, you can basically just correct it. They're pretty minor, but it depends on kind of the accuracy that you're looking for. So then you can see here, these are his ground control points, and this is pig rooting. You can't see it that well, but essentially he uses this software to categorize, this is rooting, this is not rooting, and then we can calculate how much rooting is actually there. Previous research looking at this, you had to go out to that wetland or pasture, walk around the whole property, sweating, it's hot. This I can do in the air condition, and it's way more accurate. So we plan our flight, we put ground control points if you're using them. Here you can see the flight, you can see the lines of where it's flying. That's the drone, and then each dot is a picture it's taking. You get your raw images with those tags with the location. Use some kind of software to put it all together, and then you can use that software, the other software, to basically measure how much was actually there. And it worked out pretty well. It was quite the effort. The other thing about these is I can save these flights. So I can say wetland 42 saved, come back in 3 months, just push a button and it's going to fly the exact same flight again. So it's very repeatable. So most of the rooting we saw was in December, January, during the more winter months, except for in semi-native wetlands. I'm not going to get into the detail too much, but basically just demonstrated, excuse me, a really accurate technique to quantify the pig damage using drones. Like I said, you don't have to go out there, you don't have to be on the ground to count it. So our current drone research, or more recent, if you haven't watched our virtual tour of the center, it's really cool. It's on our website and on our YouTube channel. So this was a learning experience for me because I'm standing in the bed of a truck, flying a drone, trying to follow that truck. Definitely took some practice, but it turned out to be some really cool footage to see the landscape. So this is turning down this main road right here. Perk Drive?
Perk Drive. No, that's experimentation.
That's experimentation. I had to get them all wrong. Yeah. Anyway, so there's a weed garden when you come in. So that was I think it turned out really well, and it adds just a different perspective. So that's kind of some cinematography we've been doing. And then also recently we had a bunch of pine timber harvest around here on property. So I can look at before and after. You can really calculate very accurately how much timber was actually harvested. So this is coming up to the office buildings here. We're out over here. And it allows you also, I've done a lot of pictures of buildings and stuff, which have turned out great. We've also done pre and post prescribed burns. So before and after, you can really look at the fire intensity, what actually burned. I want to get into plant productivity, but I need a fancier camera for that, so hopefully someday. Because I think the faculty around here, everyone could really apply it. You can look at so many different things. More cinematography, but there's really endless options out there. So I guess the biggest has been the learning the technology, but it's come so far from the beast. And data storage with our pig damage study. We had about 4 terabytes of imagery over 3 years, which is pretty big to just handle and process, but it's starting to get easier as technology advances also. So I will fly it out and up and turn it as much as possible so you can kind of see the landscape. And then eventually I'll have to unplug it and you guys can all come out and kind of watch it from close up, and I'll land it. And then I'll fly this baby one. And with this one, I'd like to fly over here and take a picture of everyone. And then I'll print out some copies. Hopefully you'll be able to pick them up before lunch or after lunch. And then if you guys want to, you can come out and look kind of behind me to see what my phone is saying. But I use my phone for this one. This one I can't hook up to the TV.
Yeah, how much is your address? That's a different one. Is it more expensive? No, but those are your workspace?
So this drone, the remote control, we had to purchase an additional piece or replace the piece, but basically it's just an HDMI cable that allows me to plug it into the TV. Now they have, of course, the first person view goggles where you can like really get into it,
Yeah.
which I would love to play with one day. So it's a little different from what I see on my phone or the tablet. This is an iPad. I think you can use Android too. Funky. And I need
I believe what?
I was in middle school.
So I'm at about 20 meters right now. Looks like an experimental spot out there. I'm going to try to turn. Might cut out on me though. So if you guys want, you can come out and take a look at it. Here we go. Turns really slow. I think my sensitivity's off. Alright, everyone smile and wave. Alright, one more. Alright, very cool. I'm gonna go land this one so you guys can get to your next class. But this one's pretty stable being so tiny. I mean, I've flown it at 50 meters and it was pretty windy and I did great.